Good morning, everyone. I know that we have junior highs joining us, senior highs joining us. We'll have folks coming in and we will welcome them as they get here. My name is Alexandra Jacob, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Associate Pastor for Families, Youth, and Children here at Westminster. And I'm here with my colleague Olivia over there. Hey, Olivia, our Director of Youth Ministries. And we are excited to partner with the Social Justice Forum this morning. The Social Justice Forums at Westminster are built around a common theme. And this program year, their theme is an excellent one. Listen to it carefully. Moving from understanding to transformation, affecting change together, guided by God. So through these forums, we want to explore capabilities we need to build and norms we need to examine in order to be effective transformation partners in our community. This morning, Olivia and I are joined by an excellent team of Westminster youth, Jace and Anna and Tula and Tyler. And they will share stories and insights from our trip to Western Kentucky this past summer, our annual service learning trip. We traveled to Hopkins County, Kentucky, to partner with neighbors there in continued tornado relief efforts. I hope that this is not the first you're hearing about this trip, but I hope that we'll be able to share lots more stories and insights with you this morning. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping items. For those who are here in the Meisel room, there will be a Q&A towards the end. We'll share sort of a presentation, and at the end, we'll have an extended question and answer time. So be thinking of your great questions for our young people. And if you'll raise your hand, we'll bring a mic to you. This is in order that all of us here in the room and on the live stream can access your questions. So that's really important. And then for those who are joining us on the live stream this morning, Olivia will be monitoring the chat during that Q&A portion, and she'll be happy to share your questions via the chat. As part of our ongoing effort to promote respectful conversations around concerns in our community, the social justice team has created these amazing norms for our conversation that you'll see on the screen. And I'm going to pause for just a moment for you to have a chance to read these. This is how we have decided to make our lives together in these important conversations. So grounded in these common commitments and trusting that the Spirit is present within and among us this morning, I invite us to pray. Let us pray. Holy One, God of justice, breathe into us today a spirit of curiosity and humility. Help us to engage with mindfulness, following the lead of voices from our community. Guide our speech and our self-awareness, that we may honor the divine in all people. We pray these things in your Son's name. Amen. So as I shared, we are here to tell you all about our experience in Western Kentucky. And we have a tradition, or maybe it's not a tradition, maybe we've just done the past 3 years since I've been here, of taking a photo of our bright, shiny, smiling faces before we get on the vans and drive a million hours to wherever we're headed. So this was our group this year, 27 kids and, 6 adults or something. I lost count, but it sounds about right. We seek in these service learning trips that we take every summer to learn from and serve alongside our neighbors and communities. And you'll hear from some of my young colleagues here a little bit about how we chose where we were this past summer. But I wanted to give us just a little bit of theological grounding for where we're headed this morning for what we do in these service learning trips. If you weren't here last week in worship, I commend Tim's sermon to you. It was all about the ways that we have made our global partnerships together here at Westminster, the ways that we have learned from our partners across the globe, and the ways that that has affected how we partner with God's mission here in our own community. So Tim preached last week on the Great Commission, which is where Jesus at the end of the Gospel of Matthew says, go out and make disciples and baptize them, and remember that I'm always with you. For a long time, that has been sort of a grounding theological and biblical basis for how Christians think about mission in the world, for better or for worse. We have not always done a good job at this. And I want to read a quote from Tim's sermon to you. Sorry to preach to you again, but it's really good. He said, in the 19th century, Christian churches in North America and Europe heard the words of Matthew 28, that's that great commission to go out, as a compelling call to move across the globe and bring the good news of Jesus Christ. So we went. We taught the faith, we started churches, we set up schools, established hospitals, and spread the practice of Christianity. We also brought Western culture and ideas to those living in the global South and other areas of the world. This is what he says. It was the theological corollary to the doctrine of manifest destiny. The theological corollary to the doctrine of manifest destiny. So that's not always a good thing, right? And so Tim shared about how we have learned alongside our partners. He talked especially about our partnership in Cuba, led by Carlos Piedra, who said this: we don't need your solutions to what you think of as our problems. We don't need your answers to what you see as our questions. We don't want what you think of as your abundance to resolve what you see as our scarcity. But if you want to come pray with us, worship with us, study the Bible with us, eat and drink and dance with us, please come. What we want with you is amistad cristiana, Christian friendship, and solidaridad, solidarity. So since I have been at Westminster, I have looked to those global partnerships as a way that Westminster engages faithfully with our world. And I hope that some of those guiding principles are shaping the way that we think about our service learning trips here at Westminster with our youth. These are amazing opportunities for us to go out, to be removed from our context, and we all know the kind of bonding that happens as a group when we leave the city and go be with one another for 9 days or however long. It's a really important thing, but we want that partnership to be grounded in these principles of solidarity, and that's really important. So you're going to hear a little bit more about that from our young people. But just one more thing before I turn it over to them. In the past year, I hope you've caught wind of this in one way or another. We've initiated a language change. We called these mission trips for a long time. That's really common language. I grew up going on mission trips all over the country, Dominican Republic. And when I first got here, I heard little rumblings in the youth group from a couple of the kids who are now in college. They were like, it's kind of weird to call it a mission trip. There's a lot of baggage that comes along with that terminology. And it is, some of it is good and a lot of it is really not good, right? Groups that would come in, swoop into these communities, do more harm than they were doing good. That's not what Westminster was ever doing, I hope and pray, and I think we were doing good work. But this is something that made me pause and reflect. And so these youth helped me to initiate a conversation around what we refer to as mission trips at Westminster. And so we thought, a more accurate term to describe what we're doing here is actually service and learning. So it's a little bit more of a mouthful, but a service learning trip is what we refer to them as now. I think that's really more in keeping with what we're doing. We're serving and we're learning alongside our neighbors, not for, but with, alongside. So that's a word about our language and some of the sort of theological biblical grounding for what we do. And I'm going to turn it over now to Jace to tell us a little bit about the purpose of our trips.
Hi, I'm Jace, and the senior high service learning trips is great, and it allows senior high youth to experience other parts of the country that isn't like downtown Minneapolis or St. Paul, and it allows for a cultural exchange of us and whoever we're going to, and yeah, it's really amazing. You want to switch side? So part of seeking justice and service in our neighborhood, and So like part of seeking our partner. So this year we went to Hopkins County, and we went there because there was a tornado in 2021. And you may think like, oh, like there was a tornado in 2021. Well, like how did that affect it now? But it's a lot of it's like after the immediate disaster relief, there's a lot of like things that need help, like, and we were there to help out, which was great. Um, and it's great to like serve alongside them and seek justice and serve within their neighborhoods. As youth, we model humility to avoid like the narrative of the Christian missions work being like this terrible thing. So it's important to like show that you're here to observe and to help in any way possible, not to be there to like you're the savior, you're this like white Christian savior that's coming to these financially crippled neighborhoods, and like you're not there to help, and like you're there to help, but you're not there to like save them from their demons. You're just there to be an observer and try to help in any way that they feel comfortable with you helping. Relationship building is a huge part of it. You don't want to force like your hand and like tell me your story, but often they want to share their story and they will build their relationship with you, and it's really like a beautiful thing that gets to happen. I think that what really makes the service learning trip special is your time that you get to spend with your Westminster family, and that you get to really grow closer with your other youth, and especially the adults too. And I think that like the stories that everyone shares is amazing.
Thanks, Jace. Tell us what's happening in this picture over here, one of you guys. And if you can, everybody hold the mic really close to your face. That'll help us hear you really well. Anna, what's going on here?
So, a picture on the left is, I think you can probably tell kind of what it is, but it's one of our vans. I think we had 3 vans. We drove all the way from Minneapolis, Minnesota to Hopkins County, Kentucky, and it took about 2 days to drive down there. I don't remember, was the church we stopped in on the way there? It was like in
Westminster
Illinois somewhere.
DeKalb, Illinois. It's gone completely out of my brain, but now I remember.
Yes, so we stopped overnight in a church there, and we all kind of piled into these vans. And something that I really like that we've done as a tradition, I'm a senior, by the way, so this was my 3rd mission trip, and we kind of try and switch up the groups, and they're also kind of random so that everyone kind of gets to know each other, and these van rides are, I'd say, a very important part of the trip, even though they can be very long and kind of grueling, but it's a time when we can all bond together and get to know each other. We sing songs, I don't know, play games, talk. It's a really fun time, even though it doesn't really look like it. In that picture, we're all kind of crammed in together. And then this photo right here, I'm right there on the left. That's like the sleeping situation that we had at the church we were staying at. Did it turn off? No. Okay. The church we stayed at was called the First Presbyterian Church of Madisonville. And it was actually a very nice setup that we had, because last year on the trip that we did, which was also to Kentucky, we had to sleep on a gym floor, which was fine, but this time we had nice cots, and like everyone had their own little room that we got divided into. We had bathrooms, showers, so it was very gracious of them to host us, and yeah, that was kind of our sleeping situation when we were there.
Thanks, Anna.
Yeah, so hi again. My name is Olivia King, Director of Youth Ministries here at Westminster, and this was my first service learning trip at Westminster. And so it was quite the production of how did we plan this trip? How did we get here? And it all really started last year in the fall and winter of choosing the location. And there is this whole process that goes along with it. So there's a full week that we get to spend in any location that we go on a service learning trip, including the senior high service learning. But because we have such a wide travel radius, it takes about a weekend to travel there and a weekend to travel back. So we had about a 13-hour travel radius with Minneapolis as its center point, and that allowed us to kind of look at 18 different states within that radius. And along with that, we always give the senior highs, the senior highs, the choice of what location do you want to go to. And this last year's graduating class really particularly wanted to focus on the work that they were doing and the mission, the purpose of it, instead of the location of where they were going. And so they wanted to go to a place where there was the most need. And now there's need everywhere, but they really wanted to focus on natural disaster relief work. And so that prompted a call to the Presbyterian Disaster Assistance, which is an organization within the Presbyterian denomination, PCUSA. And I got to talk with their head coordinator, and they said that the location with the most need with natural disaster relief assistance was by far Western Kentucky because of the tornadoes that Jace mentioned had gone through the state in the December of 2021. And so that, again, we had already been to Kentucky the previous year, but because of the nature of really wanting to go to the place where we could be of the most help, and that being really important to our seniors, we again traveled to Western Kentucky. So with that in mind, that was how the location came about. Then it was really going about, hi Frisco, it was really focusing on who could we work with. And another thing that was really important to our seniors was grassroots organizations, working with local organizations whose goal is to help the community rather than working or partnering with a bigger organization. And so the Presbyterian Disaster Assistance pointed us to Hopkins County Long-Term Recovery Group, which was about a year and a half ago, a local grassroots community organization that popped up in response to these December 2021 tornadoes. So I reached out to them, and they were more than happy to welcome our large group of volunteers. And there was a spreadsheet that had to be filled out, just kind of explaining what our construction skills are. And now we aren't very skilled in construction work, but we are very willing, and we have a servant's heart to come and help what needed to be done. And at that point, after a year and a half, the big organizations like the Red Cross had already left that location in Western Kentucky. And this was at specifically Dawson Springs, Kentucky. So there was definitely need to continue rebuilding. And one really important fact to keep in mind was when this tornado went through Dawson Springs, it destroyed 65 to 70% of the homes that were in that community. So, and you can find videos of this on YouTube of just how much the extent of the damage was. But yeah, we did so much work there, and Hopkins County's mission statement is to expedite the recovery of disaster survivors, effectively utilizing available federal, state, and local resources, and advocate for the community's needs in recovery. And so one thing that was really important was the funding that got approved for these recovery efforts came from the federal state government. And so with that came a lot of timing, and sometimes things didn't happen as quickly as we wanted them to. For example, one of our groups went and picked up branches in a local park, and the federal government hadn't approved for that to be done until a year and a half after the tornado. And another example was, and we'll talk more about this later, but another one of our group replaced laminate flooring in a house, and they could only do it in the kitchen area and not in the living room area because that funding hadn't been approved yet. So you can see that this kind of work takes a long amount of time, and the rebuilding just, yeah, it's amazing the courage that the community had in the face of that. So
Yeah, we learned before we moved to Tula, I learned a lot about the sort of bureaucracy of disaster relief. As Olivia said, I mean, Jace and Tula and I, were you in our group, Anna? No. Jason, Tula, and I were in a group that was doing laminate flooring all week. And our project manager was like, okay, by the end of the week, you guys could probably do flooring in this other room. And we were like, we called him one day, and we're like, we're ready to do it. And he was like, oh man, I'm still waiting on a call from like the state or something. You know, we just learned a lot about sort of the timing that it takes to get funding approved, to get funding to come through. And that was really good learning for us, I think. The idea that you can't just swoop in and do what you think sounds good. You gotta sort of work with the systems that are there, that are doing really good work already. And Olivia mentioned that our graduating seniors every year have some agency in what we choose to do each summer. This was a really amazing experience for me and for Olivia. I think typically on our fall retreat, we go up to Clearwater every fall in November, and that's when we sort of gather the seniors together and say, what are y'all thinking? Usually it's an experience of, oh, we haven't given it a ton of thought, let's sort of brainstorm together. Not last year. This group, Olivia and I said, okay, at 9 o'clock tonight, we're going to gather in the common room, seniors only. We'll talk about the service learning trip. This group had already come up with their plan. They were ready to lobby us they were like, we want this and this and this. And it was all amazing things. Grassroots organizations, not a large national sort of org. Those are great too, but they were really interested in what's the community want. And they were really interested in not just picking a place out of thin air, like that they want to visit for vacation, but picking a place that really needed some partnership. So it was a pretty cool experience. All right. Yeah, Jace?
I agree especially with what Alexandra said about like the timing of everything. Everything went a lot slower than we expected when it was this like we went here because we needed to do all this work, like they need help. And then everything went just a lot slower because it needed all this approval and all this funding. And it was interesting to experience there's a lot that could be done, but we can't just keep moving forward. We have to wait. And I think that was an interesting experience for everybody. Like when we had, a lot of groups had no work to do or we're sitting around for a while because we were like, we want to keep working, but we need the guidance and the approval from the grassroots organization.
Thanks, Jace. Tula?
Okay. So as part of our preparation for the service learning trip, we did some cultural awareness and sensitivity training so that we could better understand the culture and history of Hopkins County. So much of what defines a culture are its perceptions, attitudes, beliefs, and values, which are all made evident through behaviors and practices. And so we tried to keep that in mind so that we didn't tokenize individuals based on cultural bias and assumptions. We also sought to remember our own cultural identities formed from our own specific experiences, and we used that information to avoid making assumptions about people we met. And lastly, we discussed cultural differences with adult leaders based on our daily interactions with the people around us.
Thanks, Tula. This was something that was also really important to some of the older youth. They felt we haven't always done an amazing job at doing some of the sort of background cultural assumption work around sensitivity and engaging with true lens of partnership with our communities. And so they said, can we do this? And of course we said, yes, we should. And so much of this, Pastor Elena comes to speak to our confirmation class each year and shares with us about Westminster's Our Hope for the World statement. And I don't know if a week goes by that I don't reference it myself within youth and children's circles at Westminster, because it's an amazing tool that helps to ground the work that we're doing on these trips. And so I commend that to you. All right, I'm using too much of my moderator's privilege. Anna.
Hello. So we've talked a lot about the seniors last year. They obviously, from what you can tell, they really knew what they wanted on this trip. And so 2 mission trips ago, we also went to Kentucky. And that time, we kind of went through an organization through ASP, Appalachian Service Project. And I think this year, for this mission trip, the seniors really wanted to do something like Olivia mentioned, which is more grassroots and a lot more of a, I don't know, like something that we could kind of do on our own, because I think a lot of the stuff 2 years prior had been kind of run by ASP. And another thing the seniors really wanted was to see kind of other groups within this kind of area we were in Western Kentucky. So first, one organization that we worked with, obviously, is the Hopkins County Long-Term Recovery Group. This is the group that kind of ran everything, gave us the supplies, told us where to go, the different sites, and so yeah, and that was also kind of intertwined with the church that we stayed in, which I had mentioned earlier with the picture, the First Presbyterian Church of Madisonville. And this group hosted us, gave us like a kitchen to work with, rooms to stay in, beds with mattresses, showers, washers and dryers, which was super awesome because then we could wash our dirty clothes for the ride back home, and a basketball court, which we spent a lot of time on after our days of service. And we also spoke with the pastor of this church. Her name was Jen Evans, Reverend Jen Evans. And she's the woman next to Olivia on the left. And she talked to us about the work that her congregation was doing in response to the tornadoes. They had something called Camp Noah, which was kind of a summer camp that helped kids with PTSD from these natural disasters that had happened, and provided them with tools and strategies for continuing on after experiencing the amount of trauma that they had experienced. And then another group we worked with was the African American Coalition of Hopkins County. And so the 2 founders, Bill and Connie McReynolds, they're the 2 in the middle next to Olivia. They talked to us about kind of what their organization was about, the history of why it was founded, and recently they've been working on campaigns for ending gun violence and killings of children, young black children in Hopkins County, also men. And they were a nonprofit organization that has been involved in Hopkins County for a long time. They talked about some tornado relief that they'd been involved in, but they also were involved in a lot of stuff within the county. And so, again, some of our seniors last year decided that they wanted to raise money to donate to these 2 organizations, to the church and then to the nonprofit African American Coalition. So I think we raised about $300, I'd say, just from the youth group. All of us kind of pitched in, and then that money went towards these 2 groups that we had worked with. And I just think that even the fact that these seniors had put something like this together kind of shows what Westminster is about. And I think a lot of groups might come to an opportunity like this and go in, do the work, which is still a great thing, helping this community. But the fact that these seniors felt like it was important to go beyond that and learn about organizations in this county, in this area, that had already been doing stuff with the disaster relief, and not just that, with the community as a whole, I think that's something that is really impactful, and I'm really glad that we got to be a part of that.
Thanks, Anna. And I want to piggyback off you were saying and really emphasize the importance of what our seniors did. I think that really speaks to the faith formation that they have as individuals after going through this program at Westminster. And also it speaks to the relationship building of these local community organizations within Hopkins County and the trust that they're putting with them to continue the good work that they're doing. And so again, it's not about what we're doing to swoop in and save the day. It's investing in them and supporting them to do the good work that they have already been doing for a while.
Again, an affirmation that, that the Spirit is already present. Jesus is already there doing good work. Jesus is already here in this community doing good work, and we get to partner with that. That's a pretty cool thing. All right, I think Tyler's going to tell us a little bit about the travel, and then we'll hear a little bit about the construction projects along with some pictures here. A little scary, but those ladders aren't too high, right? I've seen higher.
Hello? All right, works. All right, so we traveled to Western Kentucky, as you probably know by now, and we stayed overnight in 2 churches along the way. On the way there, we stayed at Westminster Presbyterian Church in DeKalb, Illinois, and on the way back from Western Kentucky, we stayed at Christian Lutheran Church in Rockford, Illinois, on the way back. And during the week in Kentucky, Monday through Friday, we worked full days on various projects and jobs throughout the week at 3 primary sites that the youth group was split up into groups. And we worked on house projects in the community and various outdoor projects, including debris removal left from the tornado, like branches and pieces of destroyed buildings. Yeah.
Hello. Okay. So I think now each of us will talk about like because we were all split into different groups that did different things. And so my group, we started off the week, the first day on Monday, they kind of didn't know exactly what they wanted us to do because I don't think they were expecting to have as big of a group as we were. I think a lot of the groups that had come prior were a lot smaller, and we had 30 people. And so first we kind of went around the community to different houses, and they had a lot of construction debris that we picked up. And then the second day, my group was what Olivia had mentioned. Finally, they had gotten the approval to remove the literal branches that had flown off of trees from the tornado. They were not allowed to remove them from the park until that day, which was a year and a half later, which is kind of crazy. But so we spent the morning doing that, picking up these big branches and other stuff that had been kind of strewn around this public park. And then we also put together these picnic benches, right, Olivia? They were made out of recycled bottle caps that I think the community had collected themselves, which is cool. And then this company had offered to melt it down. So there are the benches. And then in the rest of the week, we spent at this man, his name was Justin, and his house had been blown away in the tornado. So it was completely gone, and I think just the foundation was left. So he had been building this house from the ground up, basically on his own. And when we got there, he had the frame of the house put in, and the walls. So we helped put in the dry walls and eventually the insulation of his house. And we definitely, I think, surprised him by how fast we were able to put up all the stuff, because by the end of the week, I don't know, he was just very grateful for the work we had done. And yeah, it was a great experience getting to know the homeowner as well. He told us a little bit about himself, about what had happened to him personally during the tornado, and I learned how to put up drywall, which I guess is a life skill that I have from now on. So yeah.
So in my group, throughout the week, we put up the framing of a bathroom in our homeowner's garage. And at the start of the week on Monday, we were picking up debris with all the other groups as well. But on the other half of the day, we went to the homeowner's house and we helped move furniture and other belongings into their other house, because it was a property where there was 2 houses on the property. So we were just moving there was the basement of the one house, and we're moving all the furniture and belongings to the other house. So it was hard work. And then on Wednesday, we were clearing out their garage a little bit to make space for the framing of the bathroom in the garage. And the other group, we were split into 2 groups in just our one group, and the other group helped move the homeowner in and help organize belongings in their house. So, and then one day on Wednesday, we didn't, on or I think it was Tuesday actually, there was a huge storm. So we actually had to stay in, I don't know exactly where it was, but it was like a half day for us because all of our work was like moving stuff from one house to another. So we couldn't, we had to stay safe in this part of the thing. So yeah.
Yeah, and that actually reminds me. While we were there, I think 2 of the days we were there, it was raining pretty hard, and you could kind of see that even the fact that it was raining was making the community very nervous, which shows the trauma that this tornado and these natural disasters that affected them, kind of the effect that it had on them. And so, yeah, I just would like to put that in.
Well said, Anna. We've got about 5 minutes till I want to turn us to a sort of an extended Q&A. So I wonder if, would somebody tell us, Tyler, would you tell us a little bit about, I don't know, these fun things happening on these pictures here? Oh yeah, there's the rain. Yeah, you guys all standing out in the rain.
So on the left picture over there, every night we had a dinner crew and mornings we had breakfast crew. So we would help Laura Lee to make dinner for the whole youth group. And then on the top right picture, I think that was on our way back to Western Kentucky. We stayed in the Lutheran church, and it rained on us, as you can probably see, and had some fun times. And on the bottom left, that on Wednesday, we had a half day because it was pretty hot, and we just wanted to incorporate some fun in our day. So we went to like this park where it had mini golfing and kayaking, and there was a pool party. We had a pool party with a slide, so it was pretty fun.
It was pretty great. So before we turn to Q&A, do any of the 4 of you want to share any other takeaways that you haven't had a chance to say, anything about relationships that you formed during the week, or something you didn't get to say yet? And y'all start thinking of your great questions, especially junior hires in the room.
It goes for saying for all of us that we love the trips, and we are extremely grateful that Westminster helps us do it, and we would love them to continue, and we love talking about them, and we love seeing you guys support it. So thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Jace.
I think a major takeaway that I had from this trip was creating relationships with the youth group. And although the work was good that we were doing for the community, I just think the relationships I made with my fellow peers of the youth group was really special to me.
This is kind of me talking out of this just came to my head, so this might not make sense, but these trips have been a very impactful, all of them have been very impactful experiences for me, and I think that looking back on just Westminster and our community in general, I think it's a very unique place, and I think sometimes you can kind of take for granted how amazing and just like I said, unique this community is, and I'm really grateful to be a part of it. So thank you for allowing us to go on these trips, Alexandra.
Thanks, Anna. All right, I think we'll turn to a time of question and answer now, remembering our commitment to respectful questions and answers. I'm not worried about y'all, but these are really good reminders here. And so I'm going to start with a softball question, and then y'all think of your questions. There are a bunch of junior highs in the room. Why should a middle schooler look forward to these trips? Why should they, in their 9th grade year, plan to go on the trip that summer? This is for y'all 4.
Well, I think the junior highs should look forward to going to a senior high once they come of age, because it's just really fun bonding time with the people that are around you, and I think it allows for you to experience work that maybe is like a little bit higher intense than the junior high trip. And so I just think it's a great opportunity for like growth and experiences.
Thanks, Tyler. All right. What questions do you all have? And we're going to bring a microphone to you. And Olivia's going to monitor, I think, the online chat as things come in.
Steve Snyder had a question.
Aw, Steve. Great.
Did you get to meet some local youth during the service trip?
Hello. We didn't really, unfortunately, get to meet any youth. We kind of spent the majority. Bye, Jace. Good luck.
Thank you. He's playing the flute today.
Yep. I'd say with the majority of the week we kind of spent focused on our service, and we didn't really leave our sites and the church we were staying in. So yeah, we didn't really get to be involved in the community itself as much as I guess we'd hope to, but I'd say we still got to meet a lot of amazing people. They were just kind of either folks who were organizing it through the organization we were working with, or the people whose homes we were working on.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, it looks like Donna has a question.
I don't know how your service learning. I was wondering if you prayed together or sang together, and if you sang in the van, what songs did you sing?
Oh, this is so good. That was the best question. I love it. Did we pray together, Tula?
Yeah, we prayed and like sang together every night when we were at our host church and when like at all the host churches, and it was really nice.
Olivia, I wonder if you would say a word about what our evening devotional time looks like. We didn't quite get to that.
Yeah, so every evening we had a pattern of eating dinner together, gathering for worship, singing songs, praying, and then we would split off into small groups and go through a devotional booklet that was based off of 3 different passages that you can find in Matthew and other different Gospels, but these were called the Great Compassion, the Great Commandment, and the Great Commission. So 2 of those, Matthew 25 is one of the passages, and then Matthew 28 is the other. And these were all to frame kind of the missional theology that we were talking about, that Alexandra mentioned, that Tim was discussing, of how do we shift our mindset from this Christian kind of saviorism to doing this work and partnering with organizations in a way that creates fellowship opportunities, and also navigates this whole idea of just kind of knowing what's best and imposing a will on a community that isn't their own, and leaving the community to have their own agenda. So each small group kind of discussed these different passages that you can find throughout Matthew, and they talked about what it means to be a Christian in the 21st century and to do this kind of mission work. And I'm curious as to what you all talked about in your small groups, because none of the adults were a part of these small groups to give the students the autonomy to discuss what they want to. So do any of you have any comments about what you talked about?
Keep saying it, but it's something that it's very important to keep in mind, and grounding yourself in the fact, again, that we're not saviors swooping in to help people. Well, we are helping them, but it's more about doing every little thing that we can to just make a small difference and help them along the way. And I think that in my small group, it was not just the fact that we were reflecting on like the gospel, and that's important obviously, but it was also just time to talk about our days and like reflect in a way that was a much smaller community, I guess, than like the big group. And I think it was nice just to be able to have a time with a small group of people without any adults, that like you can just talk about your day and like what happened, and how you view what's going on in Dawson Springs. I don't know. I thought it's a very nice tradition that we have to be able to do that.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. Donna asked about songs that we sang. I mean, one of my favorite things is if so of course, like one adult will be sort of on duty for bedtime, making sure everybody's where they need to be at what time, brushing their teeth and all that. But on the days that I was not on nighttime duty and could go to bed whenever I wanted, the best feeling is going to bed on a service learning trip and hearing their laughter and hearing their singing. Aiden Lumen had his guitar. And they would sing, I don't know, Wagon Wheel. You sang Wagon Wheel a lot. We love Sanctuary. Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary. A perennial youth group favorite. I don't know. Yeah, it's a great thing. And this may have been the group of graduating seniors, but they love this song. It's number 100 in the Glory to God hymnal, Canticle of the Turning. My soul, da 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 da. Yeah, it's good. What other questions do y'all have? Yeah?
Yes, my question would be, how were you able to spread the gospel on your way there when you stopped and on the way back?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna intercept this one and sort of reframe just a little bit. I think we shared a little bit about what the ways that we think about gospel partnership. Jesus sends us out and says, "Go, baptize, make disciples of all nations." And the way that we, as a youth group, do this is in our daily living. And so I wonder what some of the ways you all were able to live out your life of Christian faith on this trip. It might not have been preaching to people, for instance, but how did you live out what you know about what it means to follow Jesus on this trip? Not a trick question. I think you did it every day. And I know there's others in the room who were on the trip too. If you feel like you want to say something, you just let us know.
Okay. It's a very good question. I'd say most obviously we did it through my group was when we would get together with Justin, the homeowner whose home we were working on, and we would work alongside him, and he would kind of be the one who would be like, okay, here's where we're putting up the drywall. And then he would hold the ladder, or he would put in the nails, but we would help him and alongside him, which is, I think, the most important teachings of Jesus. We weren't there to take over the whole show and be like, okay, we're putting up there and all this stuff. Justin was the one who was telling us what to do, and we were just there to help him. And I think the fact that we were doing that is how we served the gospel.
That's
while
gospel.
we were there.
That's gospel work. Yeah. You guys were friends to one another. I saw that all through the week. We were not without injury, I'm sure. I mean, there were no trips to the hospital or urgent care during that trip, I don't think, right? No.
No, I don't think so.
But you cared for one another, and that's really important. What other questions do you all have?
Thanks, Alexandra. I know that many of you have siblings. Some of you had brothers or sisters on the trip. Some of you had brothers or sisters at home. How did this change your relationship with them? Or how did you talk to your younger siblings about the trip when you got home?
Well, great question.
During the trip, I felt closer. So I have an older brother named Caden, and he graduated last year, so he was a senior. And I felt closer to him on this trip in a way, because during the summer, he was gone a lot. So this is the time where I got to spend the most time with him. And it just felt good to, I don't know, experience this trip with him. So it was nice.
I also have a sister who was on the trip. It was her first high school mission trip this year, And it was also kind of the first time when I did something like this with her because she and I have that age gap, and she was always in the middle school trip or whatever, and I was on the high school trip. And I would say it was nice to have this shared experience together because it's something that you don't really get anywhere else. And being a part of Westminster in general, is a community that's separate from all other aspects of my sister and I's lives. I go to Edina High School, by the way, so it's a very, it's a different vibe at Westminster than you get at Edina, which is very refreshing. And I feel like it's a place where you can get to be yourself and outside of all the other activities and commitments that you have. So it's something that, I don't know, it's nice to be a part of and be there with my sister and get to see how she is a part of it and her place in the group. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but
That's really good because you guys are at different ends of that spectrum. Like Tyler has an older sibling and Anna has a younger sibling. Yeah, one of my favorite parts about the youth group is that we draw from all across the metro. So this is kind of fun. If you're in the room and you go to school in Minneapolis, raise your hand. If you're in a Minneapolis public school, junior highs too, St. Paul public schools. But there are St. Paul kids. Eric raised his hand. Edina, Hopkins, Minnetonka, Wayzata, a suburb of St. Paul, a private school. Yeah, like all over the place. And then you come to youth group and you go on these trips and you get to know people from all across the metro. And it's a pretty special thing. It's different from a neighborhood church. All right, I think we have time for, Wendy, great.
So as you think about the trip that you were on this summer and look to next summer, are there things that you learned or watched this summer that are leading you down a path of what you'd like to do next summer?
Especially since I'm a senior, so I'm going to be the one, I guess, or one of the people who decides and provides input for what we want to do next year. I think I want to follow the example that the seniors set last year, where we don't look for a place to go based off of, oh, it would be fun to go to Hawaii, or like, I don't know. Obviously, we're not going to go to Hawaii,
It would
but
be fun.
like if we're like, oh my gosh, let's go to Colorado because it's such a pretty place and we would have so much fun. Like, I feel like it's more important to center yourself around like the service and going again, like what the seniors did last year, like where there's need. And I think we obviously we haven't had a conversation about it yet, but I think that going into next year, I want to make sure that I advocate for a place that where we can make the most difference and do everything we can to help out.
Thanks, Anna. I think that's a great place for us to wrap up. So several of our youth have already shared gratitude to you, to this community, for supporting these trips that we go on that are so important for the formation of our community as a youth group. And also, I hope, for the formation of a kind of missional identity that is grounded in solidarity and partnership. So thank you all for supporting us. Thank you for coming to watch our Social Justice Forum presentation. And if you want to hear more about these trips, the youth are the best people to ask. I love them because, it's my job, but they're so awesome and the kids really love to talk about it too. So I have just a word about next week. Next Sunday, we join with the Eco Justice team to welcome Russ Henry, who is a naturalist and a gardener and a soil health expert and educator. And he will be talking about creating an eco-friendly landscape in your yard and the work that you can do this fall to get it ready for spring. So we hope Social Justice Forum and the team hopes to see you here next week. And we are grateful for your support of the youth group. So thank you so much.
And I also have an announcement. Small Hands, Big Hearts is doing their October food drive. And the items that they're collecting are toothpaste and toothbrushes, ramen, noodles, Kleenex, granola bars, soup, and hygiene items. And all the donations will be put into bins throughout the church. So you can drop those items off and they'll be collected on October 28th during Trunk or Treat. So thank you all.